So then when I saw them play at the Patriots Center, I was just, finally in the midst of the crowd. I wasn't behind stage watching them play, and they put on a big rock show. I mean, they were rock stars, and that's really what they always wanted to be, they always said, we're going to be rock stars. And I would always shy away from that term. I don't want to be a rock star. But they were like, no, we're going to be rock stars. And though they might say, hey, well, we're not rock stars, I don't want to be a rock star now because it's so not cool to be a rock star, they are absolutely rock stars.
I remember one time Benji saying, I just flew out to Japan for the day. Like, who flies out to Japan for the day? I mean, I don't even go to Virginia for the day.
The phenomenal success of 2002's The Young and the Hopeless had catapulted Good Charlotte into the mainstream. They spent the next 2 years touring and experimenting with different sounds and styles of music. With a more worldly outlook and collaborative approach to their songwriting, third album, The Chronicles of Life and Death, released in October 2004, is considered by many as something of a departure from their earlier material.
After their second record was done, which is their big album, they did their third album, and from what I understand, they started letting Billy have a bigger hand in the writing. Deservedly so. I mean, he'd been writing, in the van and the bus and touring with these guys nonstop, with Joel and Benji still being the predominant songwriters. But they started to let Billy have a little more influence on what was going on with the songwriting. And because their second album was so big, their third album had a huge amount of pressure on it. And they went back to the plate several times with Aaron Valentine the second time, again. And the songs kept getting rejected by the label because they just weren't accessible enough. So they finally put the record out, and because it had a different slant and a darker look, I don't think their crowd was as appreciative and as understanding about what they were doing. So because of that, it still sold over 1 million copies, but that's not good enough in our business.
Their sound had progressed, they had a full-on symphony orchestra in there in the background, lots of violins, that sort of stuff. And it was very well composed, but I think they might have lost a lot of their fan base at that point.
I was very, very pleasantly surprised. The opening track with the strings and the whole big intro, and I was very impressed with what I heard. I was honestly really proud, more so of Billy because I'd known him longer than the rest of the band, and I could tell that Billy had made an influence on the band.
With their massive chart success and high-profile public image, there has often been intense media interest in the members of Good Charlotte, including their personal lives and relationships. However, friends of the band have credited them for the clean living lifestyle they have maintained since day one, which many agree has helped to keep them all grounded.
Good Charlotte is definitely still grounded. I mean, they're one of those bands where they're just average guys. They write some great songs, they tour the world. They come back home, they're hanging with their peeps.
I don't think they're embarrassed from being from Baltimore or Waldorf or wherever it is, so I think they like to stop in every once in a while. And they still have lots of friends here. Jeremy, our sound guy, is friends with them, so.
Every time they're in town, they're in Annapolis, they'll normally come out to the open mic night where I'm just sitting there playing. Here I am, Johnny Nobody in Annapolis, Maryland, but they'll always buy me a shot, buy me a drink, hang out, be cool.
Well, my guitarist, Nick, is, he's lived with those guys. He's been on tour for 4 or 5 years, in a row with those guys, and my drummer played with them. Anything that Nick is involved with, as long as it doesn't just suck, they're gonna probably want to help out with. We went out to play a show in July of 2006 at the House of Blues in Hollywood. Very strange show. We opened up for Snoop, David Banner. So it was like one rock band, excuse me for saying so, but 5 white guys from Baltimore, and a whole room full of very soulful and very wonderful artists and musicians. Joel actually came out and sang with us, and I think no matter what, people kind of were like, wow, like what the hell is this, like we know who that guy is, who are these guys, Very nice of him to come out, and of course we hung out and partied late that night and had a good time.
They're into it for the music, they're not into it for the money, which is where I think a lot of bands get confused, and then they lose themselves and their character and their personality and basically their overall style and touch. And they're just fun people to be around. You never have to worry about them snobbing, sticking their nose up, and they haven't changed in that aspect by any means, and they're still that way today.
I finally got to go out to LA and hang out and see where they live and just kind of reveling in their success, and they still, we just sat and had coffee and would talk, and they're still the same caring kids. They still have the same amount of drive. they're busy as hell. They're always doing something, so that's very much the same. And I think they still have a love for their family and their true friends, and they know who they are, you know, and I think that's the one thing that sustains with them.
Benji and Joel bought houses in Annapolis for family members and come back all the time, and I know that they hang out with Jimmy.
They bought half of the block that they lived and rented, you know, when they were totally broke. They got to come back and be like, I own you now, you know, and I mean, these houses are meager compared to, you know, the houses that they have out in LA, but I think that the sentiment and the statement of it is massive. To me, it is. When I see him every day, I'm just like, way to go.
Whilst Chronicles was another platinum-selling album for Good Charlotte, its supposed failure to build on the runaway success of their previous album prompted the band to take a break from the spotlight. In 2006, they reunited with debut album producer Don Gilmore and decamped to Vancouver to work on the fourth album. With their traditional rock anthems now joined by more club-driven tracks and a collaboration with Avenged Sevenfold, the diverse and more mature-sounding Good Morning Revival was released in March 2007.
Joel was in town for Christmas, and he played me you know, just bits of the record, and I heard that first intro, and I was like, it's the first intro where I heard it on the record where I was like, wow, this is awesome. It actually reminded me of like a Tears for Fears